Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richard here, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll have a look at this TTArtisan 100mm f2.8 2x macro lens. While it is a brand new lens, some of you may also find it a little bit familiar, and I will tell you why. But before we start this review, I also want to tell you that the lens sample for this review was sent to me by TTArtisan. I do not have to return the sample after I finish this review, but I also did not receive any money for this review. If you want to purchase this product, I do have an affiliate link in the video description below. I just want to make sure everything is clear and transparent before we start this review. We'll start this review by looking at the image sharpness first. And let's start with the normal sharpness test, shooting some test charts at a few meters away. At f2.8, the center sharpness is very decent already. Even though I'm testing it with the 61 megapixel Sony a7CR, the image at 200% zoom still look quite nice. Stopping down would improve the sharpness. We reach the maximum sharpness at f5.6, then the center sharpness remains pretty much the same until f11 when diffraction starting to soften up the image a little bit. If you look at the corner, at f2.8 it's also pretty good. There's a bit of softness very close to the corner, but overall still usable. Corner sharpness would gradually improve as we stop down the lens and it reached maximum corner sharpness at f8. Focus at the corner or at the center of the photo doesn't seem to make any noticeable difference to the corner sharpness, which suggests this TTArtisan macro lens has very minimal field curvature. This TTArtisan lens is a 2x macro lens, so let's have a look at the sharpness at 1x macro. At maximum aperture f2.8, the sharpness is pretty good already, very usable. However, stopping down to f4 would improve the contrast and sharpness a bit. The working distance, which is the distance between the front of the lens and the subject, is approximately 12 cm or almost 5 inches when shooting at 1x macro, which is quite good. If you shoot at 2x macro, working distance is around 8 cm or just a bit over 3 inches. At 2x magnification, the image is reasonably sharp at f2.8, but just like at 1x magnification, it does get a bit sharper and better contrast if we stop down the lens a bit. To be honest, most people wouldn't be shooting at f2.8 anyway, as you will want to stop down the lens a bit to get a bit more usable depth of field. This TTArtisan macro lens renders nice looking bokeh, no matter you use it to shoot photo at normal distance or taking macro photos. Bokeh balls are round even when I stop down the lens. Bokeh balls don't look nervous at all, with smooth transition at the edge of the bokeh balls. I also don't see much cat's eye swirling bokeh near the corner as well. In terms of vignetting, this TTArtisan performs really well. Even at f2.8, the lens already has very minimal amount of vignetting, and once I stop down the lens a bit, then vignetting virtually disappears. This macro lens has decent chromatic aberration control. I only see very minimal color fringing in my high contrast photos. My local test photo result also looks pretty nice. I don't think anyone will have serious chromatic aberration issue when shooting with this lens. Looking at my brick wall test photo, I see a small amount of pincushion distortion, but the distortion is so small that it also shouldn't cause any real problem when shooting real world photos. Lens flare is usually one of TTArtisan's biggest weakness. With this 100mm macro lens, there are also times when the lens flare is quite noticeable, like this test video clip that I shot at night. There's quite a bit of lens flare that also affects contrast. But I have to say, when I'm taking normal everyday photos, the lens flare issue is usually quite a bit better than that. There is lens flare, but the amount is very acceptable most of the time. Unfortunately, the lens doesn't come with any lens hood, otherwise it could also help minimize the amount of lens flare when the light source is just outside the frame. Shooting at wide open and f4, there isn't much Sunstars. Once I stop down to f5.6, the 12-point Sunstars becomes quite noticeable. At f11, Sunstars becomes really quite sharp, and the tails of the Sunstars also looks very nice to me. This lens has some pretty noticeable focus briefing when I did my usual 1m to 20m focus briefing tests. Last but not least, let's talk about the design of this lens. This TTArtisan 100mm 2x macro lens is a full manual, full mechanical lens, no autofocus or any electronic features. The lens has a full metal construction that feels very solid. It's not exactly a small lens, and the weight is around 700 to 750 grams depending on the camera mount, so definitely not lightweight. The lens is available for pretty much all the full frame and APS-C mirrorless lens mount. It is also available for Nikon and Canon DSLR, and also the medium format Fuji GFX as well. The focus ring is at the front. Focus flow is just a bit over 90 degrees, so it's not really that long, especially for a 2x macro lens. I feel it could be a bit longer to allow more precise focus control. There's an aperture ring, and it has clicks, 2 clicks per stop from f2.8 to f11, then is 1 click per stop. Both the focus ring and the aperture ring requires a bit of force to turn. The front filter thread is 67mm, and the lens comes with a metal front lens cap. There are 4 small screw holes near the front of the lens. There's a small cold shoe mount bracket that comes with the lens, and you can install it to one of these screw holes. Then you can mount accessories like a LED light to help you light up your subject. There's only one of these mounting bracket that comes with the lens. I would really like to see at least 2 that comes with the lens so that I can install one light on the opposite side of my subject. But anyway, it's still a very nice design. At the beginning, I said some of you may find this lens a bit familiar. It is because this lens is largely based on TTArtisan's own 100mm tilt shift macro lens that was released about a year ago that I also did a review. The optical formula is exactly the same, so optical performance should be identical as well. The only real difference is that this new lens does not have the tilt shift feature anymore, so it's just a 2x macro lens. So that brings up the question, why does TTArtisan do that? Why they release a new lens that has less features? It seems to be opposite to the normal trend that usually a new product would add more features. So it turns out, after the 100mm tilt shift lens was released, TTArtisan has heard many feedbacks that says the tilt shift feature is not really that useful with a 100mm focal length lens. If you have watched my review of that original tilt shift lens, you may remember I also made a comment about that as well. So after hearing all these feedbacks, TTArtisan decided they will just remove the tilt shift feature, as that would give us 2 benefits. While the size of this new lens is pretty much the same as the original tilt shift lens, as the optics design is exactly the same, but now without the tilt shift mechanism, the lens is quite a bit lighter. According to TTArtisan, the new version is around 700 to 750 grams depending on the camera mount, while the original tilt shift version is between 830 grams to 850 grams, so the new version is over 100 grams lighter than the original version. This new lens is still not something I would call lightweight, but it is noticeably lighter than the old version. Then the second benefit is the price. The simpler construction allows TTArtisan to sell it at a cheaper price. The price of this new version is $319 US, so about 20% cheaper than the original tilt shift version. $319 for a 2x macro lens is just really cheap in my opinion. especially for a lens that has very decent overall image quality. This TTArtisan lens is sharp, has minimal amount of chromatic aberration, distortion, and vignetting. Lens flare is still a weakness for TTArtisan, but to be honest, while some of my test video doesn't look very nice, when I use it to take some real well photos, the lens flare performance is very acceptable. So to me, the biggest weakness of this lens is the size and weight of this lens. While it is a bit lighter than the original tilt shift version, a 100mm macro lens that weighs over 700 grams is still a bit heavy. This is especially for people who want to travel around and take lots of macro photos outdoor. But remember, this lens is still noticeably lighter than the tilt shift version. And since I don't think the tilt shift function is that useful, as I said in my original review, so I think this newer simplified version is actually more practical lens for most users. This TTArtisan 100mm 2x macro lens offers really great value for money and also very decent image quality that works very well even on a 61 megapixel camera.